Hello and welcome to another episode of the VC Circle podcast. My name is Narendra Kapoor. I'm joined today by Anisha Singh of She Capital. Ms. Singh, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Narinder. Thank you for having me on this.
It's a pleasure. But if I could just start by asking you, could you tell us about She Capital?
Well, so I'll tell you this, and I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So when I did the company before this, it was Maidala, and everybody wondered where I picked that name. She Capital in itself, hopefully, is self-explanatory in many ways. So it's an early stage fund. I founded it along with another partner a couple of years ago, and the idea behind it was I had looked at numbers and basically 2% of the total funding pie globally actually was going to women entrepreneurs, and I just thought the number was really dismal.
Only 2%.
Studies only 2%, and it's gone up to 5% in certain areas now and 12% in certain, but it was 2%, and it's still, 5% is not good enough either, so the idea was to change that, and studies and the more research I did showed that the only way to change this statistic was to have more women sitting on this side of the table, which is the investment side of the table. And for some reason, they say if you can't find the solution, you got to be the solution. And so we ended up, just trying to be the solution. And we ended up founding She Capital a couple of years ago, actually, and beginning of 2019. And we've been raising for it ever since. The idea is to back great high growth companies that are led by women or focused on women.
So is this a sector agnostic firm?
It is, you could say. I mean, what ends up happening is the filter in itself, women, for some reason, the pushback that we got from a lot of people was women is such a big filter, which it isn't. I mean, we're 50% of the population, or 49 in India's case, but it's considered a big filter. So we've said it's sector agnostic. However, the fund's focus is, B2C digitally driven businesses. So we're really excited about consumer-led brands in general, because that's the background. I mean, for us, the idea to do this was to add value. And so the only reason where I feel like I can add value as an entrepreneur that came from that side was where, my background is digital and the internet, and that's what I understand. And so for us, B2C digitally led brands just made sense.
Okay, but maybe I jumped a bit too far ahead, and I apologize for that. But if I can just step back a bit and ask you again, could you take us through a bit of how you went about setting up She Capital? Just a bit of the history behind it.
So She Capital in itself is my third venture.
Right.
I've done an IT company before, which is my first company called Kinnis, which I ended up selling to a US-based company. And after that, I started Maidala in 2009. And by 2015, and I hate saying this word, but I am one of the older ones in every sense of the way when it comes to female entrepreneurs. And by end of about 2015, because I was speaking globally around entrepreneurship and women entrepreneurs, I'll tell you, I started feeling like a bit of a fake, because the more I saw numbers and the more, just looking at stuff and researching stuff, because you want to be able to talk sense, you just realize that there was a serious need that was not being met here. And that's really the genesis of She Capital. The idea, at that point, I started mentoring a lot of women entrepreneurs. And over time, and I talked to Mr. Amitabh Kant once about, what could we be doing with Niti Aayog in terms of women entrepreneurs and getting that up, because I had worked with the Clinton administration in a similar role, which was, it was helping women entrepreneurs raise money. And so with an initiative called Springboard. And so the idea was if there was some way we could, do something with the government. And it just so happened, it morphed and we ended up doing She Capital. And it's been 2 years and it's been a hell of a ride. And I don't mean like all, north and upwards and easy. It's just been a hell of a ride.
I wanted to ask you about that. What was the transition from being a corporate member, being a C-suite level person to an investment firm?
It was really tough. Well, it wasn't my first rodeo, right?
Of
I
course.
founded a company and then I founded another one. So I knew that it was going to be tough. But it was really hard
But now you're
after
on the other
Maidala.
side of the table as well.
Yeah, but I mean, like Maidala, we were 350 people when I left it, right? Um, and I had, you had the works, and you know, there was a there was a lot of stuff attached to it, and then you go back to where you're on your own by yourself, having to do everything, start out emailing people saying, doing the whole sales spiel again and everything. It was really tough. It is tough to start up again, no matter what happens. And I think it's good because it keeps you grounded. So it's been a humbling learning experience, especially moving to the investment side, because I think it's easy because I went from one venture to another venture, and nobody ever told me you don't have the qualification to do this, right? But when I moved to the investment side, I heard this a lot, that we just don't, you're a first time fund manager with no experience. And so, sorry, but not going to happen. And so, I'm not going to lie to you. It's been the 2 years to get She Capital to where we are now. It's been an interesting run. I wouldn't say hard. It's been a great learning experience. I think as a first time manager, I needed to go through it. And I've gone through it. And I've been told enough times that I don't have the experience, even though I led two companies, and it's fine. Hopefully I meet the investor criteria now. In different ways.
I, would it be fair for me to ask if there's, I mean, I'm sure there has been, because just by going by the numbers that you mentioned at the top of our conversation, the 2% and now the 5% or even the 12%, which are still very low numbers. So, would it be correct for me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but would it be fair for me to ask you, what is the situation like in terms of the sexism or the bias that you face, simply because you've been going ahead and saying, I want to start an investment firm which is focused on women entrepreneurs?
It's interesting. I'll tell you something. I think the okay, you know what? Actually, I'm just going to be right up front with you, because I think somebody needs to call a spade a spade. I don't think the
Yes.
bias actually is. If you're asking, is it driven by males? Definitely not. Okay.
Okay.
Is it driven by society? Absolutely. I think
Okay.
I've faced the bias for men and women. I've had women turn around and tell me, well, why is this needed? I mean, if you got a great business, it'll get funded, which I think is complete, crap. Okay. But and I've had some great guys champion this. Has there been bias for men? Absolutely. But I've also had some great mentors and champions. I don't think She Capital would be where it is if it weren't for the people supporting it. And I'm saying males, females, everybody. It's been across the board, but more so males, because I think the investor industry tends to currently be male heavy, right? So I've reached out to so many of them, just saying, hey, can you guide me through this process, or can you? Not once have I gotten no, too busy for it. Everybody has been great in championing this. So as far as the VC community is concerned, it's been great. Like, the response She Capital has gotten has been just really overwhelming for us, and very sweet, actually. I think, it's just it's been people have been really kind to accept us. We've had every marquee VC venture fund call us saying, hey, we'd love to see what we can do with you guys. So I think that bias, definitely not there. I think there is a certain bias in terms of just raising for it, and the believability in terms of the fund, especially when we started a year and a half ago, because I think there were not enough, a year and a half, 2 years ago, there were not enough success stories out there. Right now, you're seeing a lot of co-founder led teams where there is a woman. But when we started, the only heroes that you were seeing in the story were a Vijay, a Benny, so uh, everybody just assumed कि लड़कियां तो है ही नहीं, so whatever, why are you betting on women? It's a bad bet. I've had people ask me that. Why do you want to bet on women? That just seems like bad business. So I think it'll be interesting to see and change that. It took a while getting the LPs that we got. But I think, that's good that we got the LPs that we got because they believe in it. They believe that this is going to be, look, here is my thing, right? I think there are going to be funds, and they are going to be funds that are stellar, that are going to be like bohemian funds they create a niche of their own, right, within the industry, because there's a slew of funds that have come through, right? Everybody's got a fund right now. I think some funds will end up being marquee funds, Fireside, DSG, Pi. I think they're doing excellent stuff in different niches. And so for us, it was very obvious that we wanted to be, a niche fund. We weren't looking to be, we couldn't go up against a Sequoia. We weren't looking to do that. We were looking to fill a need which we thought nobody was doing so. And so that was it. And we stayed true to it. We've actually had an LP, a prospective turnaround say, I'll invest, but you have to change your thesis, which is almost like telling an entrepreneur that you pivot your model. फिर फायदा ही क्या हुआ, right? So we've stuck true to that, and I think the biases have been there, but that's the good thing about having come off my Dala and having raised money and seen that round. You become so thick-skinned that you're like, okay, not you, then somebody else will put money into this. This will happen because I believe in it.
It's actually quite heartening to hear, considering the response that you've received from the VC community specifically. And it's good that you mentioned your fund as well, because now I want to ask you, what is your fundraising process?
I actually want to give a shout out to the VC community. So far, though, I think they've been rock stars, but sometimes I say stuff and then I get a slap on my face. But honestly, I think people have been really, in general, been very, supportive about this.
So then, what about the fundraising process? Where does She Capital stand in terms of fundraising?
Well, it's been great news for us. I mean, we did our first close in January. We did our first investment in December, beginning January, as we call the first close. We broadly raised about close to 68%, 70% of our fund almost. And so I think we're in a good position. I think Corona would have had me more stressed. I think we're in a good position because we've got the dry powder. We're taking our time now to understand where the market falls and what's going on, and we're looking to raise the remainder of the funds.
Okay, and it's interesting. I mean, I do want to ask you about your dry powder as well, because we'll come to that. But what have you been hearing, before I ask you that, what have you been hearing from your LPs? I mean, just in terms of the feedback you've been getting in terms of, okay, this is what the investment ecosystem is like right now. What have you been hearing from LPs?
It's basically, nobody knows, right? Like, everybody is it's anybody's game right now. People are all trying to guess, all of us. I don't know anybody, not even China has seen or knows whether there is going to be a next wave, what's it going to do to the economy. And I think it's the same, right? Have I gotten up panicked, wondering, what's the status with my LPs? Absolutely. Have I put in have I put in a feeler call just saying, hey, how you doing? We're good. Absolutely.
Yes.
So I think we've all done that, right? So, but it's been heartening to, I called up one of them with a feeler call, and I think he could tell that, and this is a family office, and, he's built a wonderful business now. So I think he comes from the entrepreneurial spirit. And I think he could tell that I was a little, just jittery in general. And he was like, just breathe. It's a war. And as long as we're all on the other side, who cares if one lost a limb and one lost a finger? And I thought that was so profound, because it is the truth, right? He's like, we're all on this side. One loses a finger, one loses limb. We just have to live. And I was like, I agree with you. Fortunately for us, because we had just made a first investment and we were still looking to invest, and we hadn't been, super aggressive about it. We were still working through things, and we had just called the first close. The timing has worked out okay. We don't have, it's not like we don't have, money to invest. So we are looking at deals and consciously looking, but we are cautiously looking as well,
you're not going gung ho then. Like you're not saying we have this dry powder, let's just throw all of it wherever we can, so that when
Name
the tide comes.
Narendra, name one VC that is
Yeah,
going
no, I
gung
mean,
ho
but still,
right now.
no, but still, that's the other thing I wanted to come to. You
Yeah.
and every other VC that we've spoken to is sitting
Hmm.
on a huge amount of dry powder,
Hmm.
where and everyone is also telling us we need to be cautiously optimistic. But after a certain point of time, the term cautiously optimistic starts sounding a bit tired to hear, not because it's a VC saying it, but because no one can see an end in sight to when you can stop being cautiously optimistic.
I
So
agree
I would
with you. And I think
just.
there's a fine line between being cautiously optimistic and cautious and death. Okay. And by death, I
Yes.
mean just being so, and I actually was telling, our portfolio company this. I said, it's great to be conservative, but can we not be so conservative that we die and not realize it? Because there is, you know, I know we have to conserve cash and and fortunately for them, they're in a great position. They're going to be just fine. But I know that death spiral can happen. I think for us, we've actually been talking to all companies so far. We've just, trying to figure out, like other people, yeah, where is the end to this? I mean, once the lockdown finishes, then we'll have a clue, right? Right now, whoever we talk to also. So we've spoken to some great companies that had great e-commerce business models, and a lot of them have pivoted towards making masks and the PPE suits and everything. Everybody's trying to survive right now, and I think once we just get past this 1 month or month and a half, all of us will have a better idea, including the entrepreneurs, right? I have been talking to so many of them. One of the things that I've been asking is, what is the learning coming out of this? What can we all learn? And I love talking to my fellow entrepreneurs because I think they're so optimistic and they have that die hard, attitude, which is just, we're going to make it through this. And I love it. I love that spirit. But I think at this point, even for them, they need to just see the 1 month through somehow and, take just a rain check, because VCs are going to ask, what did you learn? What were the learnings? Is there anything that you could do or trim down on, or that could be better? So I think we're in that mode right now.
So, I mean, if then to sort of condense it, is it fair to say that the startups, the entrepreneurs themselves, are the ones who are gung ho, so to speak, and saying, no, this is just a temporary blip in our radar, and the VCs are the ones saying, no, hold on, hold your horses. Is that fair to say? There's the two sides of the coin approach.
I think it's fair to say that nobody knows anything. Okay. I think it's the truth. Unless you're somebody who's got some great predictive skills. I don't even think Narendra Modi or Donald Trump or anybody, knows anything. We don't know what we're fighting. It's a different thing when you're looking at a market crash or you're looking at 9/11, where you knew who you were going up against. We're going up against something that might have a second round, okay, of infections come through in June or July. We don't know. Nobody knows. And that is why VCs are being just cautious in general and saying, hold your horses, hold the money. Okay. It's that adage, saying, when there's turbulence, what does the pilot say? He says, apna oxygen mask pehle pehno. Wear your own oxygen mask before putting it on others, because you've got to survive it through. And so I think that's the general mentality, which I think is very fair to say. And I think if you as an entrepreneur cannot think, I'm going to come out of this, then you're surely going to die. So I think it's very fair to say the entrepreneurs need to have that attitude, which is, this is just a temporary blip. I'm going to make it through. And the VCs have to be somebody who are kind of saying, okay, but still put on your own oxygen mask before you go out helping others, because it has to be that way.
And I mean, then if we can come back to She Capital again,
Hmm.
how does the current situation affect the fund, not from a fundraising perspective, but from a deployment perspective? Have those timelines changed? Have your investment horizons changed? I mean, could you give us some idea about that?
Our investment horizons hadn't changed. We had decided that we are going to deploy the fund in about 2.5 years, and between 2 and 2.5 years, which was fairly long. So we weren't in a rush. we're still going to do that. We have changed the investment strategy a bit.
Right.
We were looking to invest in about 12 companies, and with several follow-ons in, the investee companies, we've changed that slightly and modified it to a wider portfolio, saying we will invest in about 16 odd companies. Uh, Reason being that we think there will be, we actually, like my fellow entrepreneurs, believe that there will be great opportunities, and we'd like to be a part of this. I think once we come out of this, whenever this cycle ends, and I do believe it's a temporary blip, like my entrepreneur friends, then we want to be able to be a part of the growth strategy. And by the way, I always believe this, and I do believe this, that last year, US and globally, you saw the most number of female unicorn-led businesses happen. Okay, there was a wave that happened. It was also what gave the most exits in terms of liquid exits to their investors. Okay, um, I believe that wave is now going to start flowing this way. It's always the case, right? We see the unicorns happen in the US and that wave starts flowing. Unfortunately for us, we've had this corona effect, but I do believe that wave is not stopping. We will see a lot of female led unicorns in the Indian market. Maybe the timeline is delayed by another 6, 8, 12 months. So we won't see it in another 18 months. We might see it in 2.5 years, 3.5 years, 4 years. But we will start seeing those. And we want to be, in terms of She Capital, better placed in terms of backing these opportunities.
Well, I think then on that note, it's a perfect time to sort of stop this conversation because you took care of my last question as well, but it's all the better. But thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us today. It was a very, very, very engaging conversation that we've had.
Thank you so much for doing this. It was fun
Yeah.
talking. Thanks.
And yes, please, definitely. Stay safe, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.